Hello, everybody. Welcome to Divorce, Not Murder, the podcast where we hopefully make divorce more appealing than homicide. I'm your host, Kristina Ivy, mental health therapist, mom of two, and new addition to the ranks of the recently divorced. We're also here with Robert Taylor, Idaho-based divorce attorney and step-parent extraordinaire. Howdy, Robert. How are you?
Good, Kristina. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. A little sleepy this evening, but we've got the caffeine going, hopefully.
Good. Coffee is like one of the 5 food groups.
Yep. What about you?
So
What's going on
I'm
this
good.
evening?
Just hanging out, doing some podcasting. It's this thing that all the cool kids are
Loitering,
doing. Yeah,
loitering
avoiding
with
work.
Abe Lincoln in the background.
Yes,
Your
yes,
pal.
yes. He's up
Well,
there.
what are we gonna talk about tonight?
Hey, so I thought tonight, we had a good conversation last week. I was in DC. I'm back in Idaho now, but we had a good conversation after we turned off the camera, and I think we still talked for a while. It was like, dang, we should have recorded that. But we did. We talked a little bit about estate planning after divorce, and so I thought that would be fun to revisit. I don't remember anything from last week, so we're starting from scratch. But I thought, considerations for estate planning after divorce would be a fun topic.
Yeah. So, what are some of the considerations that people should have when they're considering estate planning and wills and things like that after they get divorced?
Yeah, so I think, being divorced is obviously a major life change. It's a good chance to reevaluate, and you also are in some positions where you weren't before, right? Or especially if you have kids, what happens if you die? Where your spouse, their father, raised the kids. Now what happens? Um, Also, potentially you're in a position where you're going to be adding new people to the mix. You could be adding stepkids. You could be creating kids, and so it does kind of create some new challenges and some new considerations.
Yeah, like what if you and your partner have a really negative divorce experience? You communicate, fairly poorly with each other or with a lot of conflict, and you both choose to designate somebody to care for the kids should you die that's different than the other person.
Yeah, so that's not really going to be an issue most likely, because if you have two parents, if one of them dies, the kids are going to go live with the other parent. That's pretty easy. When you're married, the chances that you could die with your partner probably low, but do exist, right? Like you
Mhm.
could be in a car together. Um, Other things could happen that cause you to die at the same time, same place, unfortunately. Versus like when you're divorced, probably don't spend a lot of time with your former partner. My wife's ex-husband comes to the house and drops the kids off and then leaves, and maybe they forgot something, so they come back and then it's time to pick them up. Unless like a meteor falls like on her porch when they're making the exchange, him and my wife spend very little time together.
Yeah, so
And
that makes
so,
sense. Yeah.
yeah. And so my wife could pick anyone she wants. He could pick anyone that he wants. If one of them dies, they go live with the other parent. And then if should
Okay.
that parent die, then the other person wins. Though it's not really a contest you want to win in this competition.
Doesn't seem like it, no. But it does make it
No.
easier, right? Like you're not the benefit of the divorce being that you don't have to spend as much time with that person also makes it less likely that you'll both perish at the same time, leaving, some contest over whose will gets executed first and whose is last.
Yeah, and it can create additional challenges. So, like, if you have kids, you definitely need a will because your will is going to name a guardian to raise your kids in the event that you're unable to. And I got it. The other parent's still around, but at some point, it's still a good. Maybe that person's not for whatever reason. It's still good to name someone to raise your kids in your place. Think about your spouse or their other parent. Your former spouse, their parent has option one, and really you're picking
Mhm.
option two and three, and that's not even any different if you're divorced, right, or married. So I'm married, my wife and I have wills. We're each other's option one, but we have some names listed. Those options two and three. The difference is that our options two and three align. We had that conversation together.
Mhm.
but you do need someone to raise your kids in your absence, and also a trustee if there's any assets or life insurance funds like that to go into
Well,
the kids.
that
So
raises a new question for me. You know,
yes,
I like to
I know I didn't even
question you
answer the
about
last one
stuff.
yet, but what do you have?
Sorry. So,
No.
I don't know if we've talked about it on here yet or before, but you have stepchildren. You do have
Yes.
two that are your wife's biological children, and then you have a shared child. If your wife were to die and
Yes.
your two oldest would go live with their father, do you have any rights at all for sort of parenting time or custody or anything like that?
I do not. Uh, I'm not a guardian. Um, I mean, the relationship's really good, and I think that it would maintain. In addition, I do have a daughter with my wife that's their sibling. That relationship would maintain. One of her kids is 17. Um, 10 months from now, she's going to maintain whatever relationship she wants with all of us, regardless of what the law
Mm.
says. I have a 14-year-old who I've known since he was 5. I don't really know that anything's going to impact that relationship, but I wouldn't have guaranteed access. I mean, in the case of my 14-year-old, it would be up to his father if our relationship continued or not. But I feel
Do
confident that it would.
people, yeah, do people write in requests for observing or protecting that relationship that don't have to be legally binding?
No, I mean, the law presumes for the most part that a parent is the best parent able to decide who should be in that kid's life. I mean, one of the big
Hmm.
ones is a lot of times grandparents, right? Like, so say something happened to my
Yeah,
wife,
yeah.
grandparents want to be around, and I could exercise my right as a parent to decide if that's in her best interest or not, and that could conflict with what my in-laws wanted to do.
Yeah.
You The point with the stepkids, though, it kind of ties into the previous point, where if we do have the trustee, you could have a person managing the funds for your kids who is not raising the kids, and so in this case, and you could have that too in a marriage, but in this case, should something happen to my wife, kids are going to dad's house, and then I'm going to manage, what's left of my wife's estate for their benefit. And so that could be a unique dynamic in and of itself,
Hmm.
where that's nature or could have the potential. And for a lot of people, it's not my situation, but for a lot of people, that's a relationship conflict. But then you have one parent who has the kids, and then the previous step parent who has the funds to assist with raising the kids. That could make the conflict,
Sticky.
add a new layer to the conflict. Yeah. Or hey,
Sticky.
if you want the money, I want to see the kids. Like, not the right answer, but I'm sure those conversations happen.
Yeah. What happens if there is no will at all? What if somebody hasn't gotten around to creating a will?
Yeah, so each state will outline what happens if you die without a will. In Idaho, uh, the first person it's going to go to is your spouse. If you don't have a spouse, it's going to go to your kids. If you don't have kids, it's going to go to your parents, and then probably a sibling, and then out there, farther separations of parents
Hmm.
or family members. Um, of note, though,
Mm.
should something happen to like one class of people, and then it would go to the next class. So that sounds confusing, but we have 3 kids. Let's just say I die, and everything's going to go to 3 kids. Um, but the the third kid, and my youngest, for some reason in this example, has a kid, and then something happens to her. That younger kid would stand in my daughter's place, and everything would still get split 3 ways. If
I
she doesn't have
see.
a kid yet, then she would, everything would get split 50-50. Say my daughter has 2 kids, everything would get split a third across the board. And then
Hmm.
my daughter's kids would split their third in half.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But the will is really good because you do get to name who's in charge of your kids, the trustee, where you want stuff to go, where your remains are going to be buried. We're talking about a will, but also estate planning with some trust, and really other tools that let you control what happens to your assets when you pass away. And also with the blended family, you could have stepkids, you could have other partner, your partner could have other kids, you could have kids together. And so those tools really allow you to do some estate planning for those situations.
That makes sense. That's a pretty comprehensive explanation, sir.
Yes. Well, just outside of the will too, though, um, after the divorce, if you have a life insurance, a retirement account, anything with the beneficiary payout, that company that administers that account is going to pay whoever you've named as your beneficiary, regardless of your marriage. And so
Hmm.
getting divorced won't change that. If you have life insurance paying out to go to your spouse and you get divorced, it's not automatic. The court doesn't tell them. Nobody changes. You can change your will. It won't matter. There's a form that you probably filled out. There is a form that you filled out with that company. You're going to die, and they're going to look at who it is, and nothing's really going to matter. But it could also be, IRA, 401, pensions. My wife's a teacher. She has a state pension. Every year it comes, I always look at it because I want to see when we can retire. And I think we were married for like 4 years, and I looked at it one time, and her ex-spouse was still listed as the beneficiary of the death
Beneficiary.
payout. Yeah. And so I was like, hey, we should change that. And so she did. She did. But
Yeah.
like, that's some stuff that people don't always think about, following the
That's a really
divorce.
good point. I think maybe, I don't know if other people did this. I certainly did because I feel like I have a very positive co parenting relationship with my ex, in that he is still the beneficiary of those things because I don't have a will. And I know that that money would go towards helping raise our children. But I think it speaks to the importance of that the divorce itself doesn't nullify that, and that, every year people have to go in and reelect their benefits and stuff with their HR departments and things like that, just as kind of like a little reminder of revisit those determinations, like who is designated as the beneficiary for those things.
Yeah. And I think maybe in that case, uh, maybe there's no practical out change to the outcome of changing it to somebody else, um, except for like, if you die and he's listed as the person that received the money, he gets the money. It's his. He can do what he wants with it. If you were to leave it in a trust, him or whoever you designated would manage that on the benefit of the kids for their benefit. Obviously, if he's raising the kids and you're giving him a large sum of money, he's either going to spend the money on the kids or spend his own money on the kids. It's all going to balance out. But what if you don't like the way he spends money? He doesn't like the way he manages money. You don't like the way
Hmm.
that, and for some people, they get divorced because of the way that, different people have different views and priorities on money. And so the
Hmm.
ideal of
It's
giving
a
that
big one.
person a large sum of money to raise your kids is scary. Um, and then, just say you never think about it again, and it's 10 years from now, and you have another spouse and you have another kid. Um, you're in a house, like, yeah, that money could be used to support those members of your family as well as, your previous kids. But then it's all going to go to your ex-husband, and that could be awkward for
Can
your
you,
current husband.
in life insurance policies and things like that, can you designate minors as beneficiaries and cut out the middleman? And then what happens? Would it automatically set up a trust?
So you cannot leave assets to minors, and so you would leave
Mm.
them in a trust. And so there's a number of trusts, but there's two types that we'll talk about real quick. You could have a living trust, which you set up while you're alive, or you could have an estate trust that it's in your will, and it just kind of comes to fruition upon your death. And so, like, for a lot of people, like if you have a large life insurance policy, but not a lot of other assets, you don't really have a trust. You're gonna create the trust in the will. You're gonna die, and then you're gonna get that life insurance plan, and then that's gonna fund and stand up and establish the trust with
Got
uh,
it.
with your passing.
So it doesn't exist until the moment the will is then executed, which uses the funds of that payout to generate the
Correct.
fees and everything else. Yeah.
Correct, because you can't. And then in your life insurance policy, your name, in accordance with my will, or if you do have a living trust, with my living, as the beneficiary on behalf of, your kids.
Yeah.
So, but you can't, and I don't think they'll let you, but you can't just write your kids' names in there. I mean, part of it's like even if you could, right? Like you got a 7 and a 5 year old, and here's $1 million life insurance policy. Like, what are they going to do with the money?
Buy a lot of
Who's going to
Squishmallows
manage?
and Pokemon cards.
Probably who's managing it? Who's taking them to the store? I mean, who's doing? Life insurance really is to, if you have kids, to get your kids from their minority to 18 or 25, whatever it is, and beyond in your absence, pay to raise your kids. And so probably giving that money to the kids directly is not only a bad idea, but I don't think they'll allow you to physically write their name in the forms. But even if
Fair
they
enough.
did somehow, then there would still need to be a trust established or that gift when it happened, or the inheritance when it happened.
All right.
Yeah.
Are
Another
there
good
any final?
benefit.
Oh,
Good.
yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like another good benefit with the will and estate planning, when you do have a blended family, it lets you control what happens to the outcome, different than without a will. We did do that analysis a few minutes ago, but like in my situation, I have a kid that my wife and I had together, and then she had 2 kids when we got married. And so if I were to die without a will, she would get everything. If she doesn't, predeceases me, then everything would go to my daughter, and the older 2 would get nothing. But the will, they're included, like so that my estate will get divided by 3 and include all 3 kids. But that's an extra step that I have to take to make it happen. Also of note, this isn't really with divorce, but just something that we're learning and figuring out as our kids get older. As I stated, kids or life insurance is to help get your kids through their period of minority and be adults and grown up. And we have a 17-year-old that's, months away from moving out, going to college. And we have a 6-year-old who's still in first grade. And
Yeah.
so we did have everything kind of like this ideal that should be divided at 3, but we're thinking about it now, and it's like, well, one kid is going to be 17, almost 18, and in college. The other one's got, at least 10 to 12 years of being a kid left, and then one's like right in the middle. And so it's causing us to reevaluate and look at it like, well, maybe it's dividing everything in third, the right answer because it's fair, or is the kid that's not going to have parents for 10 plus years of her life going to need additional funding to get her through that period.
Yeah.
So,
Do you feel comfortable sharing, like, if that has changed anything about the outcome for your family, or if it's just still under consideration?
this is something we've talked about.
Hmm.
I mean, I think it will change. We'll update our estate plan in the near future to kind of address that, to ensure that, yeah, everything seems like we should divide everything by 3 when everybody, 5 years ago. But now that a kid's moving out and one kid still has a long way to go, it's like, well, maybe
Theoretically, we'll
that,
be self-sufficient in a couple of months.
yes, yes. So I don't know that we've made a decision. It's just something that we've been thinking about and chewing on to
Yeah.
help. Or maybe do we want to, designate X amount of money for that kid for college and then leave the rest for the other 2? I don't know. Or
Hmm.
what we could do, we haven't really thought about it, is like say, hey, X amount of money's for this kid to go to college, X amount of money's for this kid to college, and then the rest is for the younger one to get there. She can have Y amount for college, and then they split what's left. When that point happens, if there's any, you can do anything you want really with estate planning, and
Tailor
uh,
make it.
you will. But like that's the point. You can tailor it to how you want in your situation, and if you die without a will, you're kind of left with the one size fits all approach, or somebody else is deciding on your behalf. Someone else is making those decisions. Somebody else is involved in a way that you could have a say in, but chose not to.
I feel like we're missing a prime opportunity to make some sort of pun on tailor-made with your name.
I did see that you set that up for me, but I was unprepared. I did not have a response. Yes. So, um, and right now, like these examples work and everything's really easy to understand. It gets more complicated with kids. Let's just say, well, I mean, you're divorced, so if you ever get married again, it's gonna be your second marriage. Let's just say it's like 10 years from now. Okay. You meet a guy, you want to get married. Uh, he's got kids,
You're
maybe he's
giving me a
older
long
maybe.
runway.
I don't know. But like you meet a guy, he's got kids that are 19 and 25. And then you got kids that are your age, you know. You may not feel the same way about those 19 and 25-year-old kids as I do about, the kids that I met when they were 4 and 7, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you guys have a kid together and then he feels some sort of way about taking care of his 3 kids, but maybe not the same as, the 2 kids that you have, like
Mm-hmm.
those can be tough conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and you can understand how if you married somebody with a kid that's 4 versus somebody that marries a kid that 24 or 34, how you would feel different about them and those factors that would impact your estate planning.
It's not just a
But
financial investment, there's an emotional investment component that gets evaluated in the process too.
agree, and maybe if you had a kid with this made up individual that's got a 30-year-old and now you have a kid together, like you might want to take care of those kids differently as well, like,
This
but
just sounds
whatever.
exhausting. Children at
I know
50
it
sounds
is, but
exhausting.
like I agree. But whatever. Well, I'm watching Modern Family right now, and
Oh,
um,
yeah.
I'm gonna totally just blunder all the names, but like Al Bundy's character, and I know that's not his name. He's like married to a much younger lady who's got like a kid that's the same age as his grandkid. I think they're in 5th grade or something. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, when I'm that age, like I don't care how hot somebody is. I am not marrying somebody with a 5th grader and like doing this whole kid thing again. Like I'll do the grandkid thing, but like I am not starting over with the 10-year-old when I'm like 60 something. That is crazy. It's
Fair enough.
exhausting. It's
Yeah,
exhausting.
parenting is
So
hard.
it is. But whatever the situation is, the wills and estate planning will help you accommodate it. Because if I've learned anything in over a decade of being a family law attorney, it's that laws are written for a one size fits all approach, and there's not a single family that works for. There's not a single one size fits all family.
You can get a divorce and a will and estate planning that's tailor made.
You can, and honestly, actually, that's like a new service that we've added this year because I was realizing as we divorced people and sent them on their ways, we were sending them with new problems to solve. Hey, did you
Mm.
update your estate? Did you update your beneficiaries? Did you think about your life insurance? Did you think about your wills? Do you want to do these things? The other thing too,
Hmm.
as we dealt with a lot of assets and clients to dividing up those assets. Like I just kind of became more familiar and aware of those and what should happen to them, and you're advising people what to do. And then it just kind of became like a natural step of like, well, hey, since we're already thinking about these things and talking about these things, or like we going back to the beginning of the conversation, like, hey, if you die tomorrow, everything will, or your kids would be raised by your spouse, and that's going to be awesome. But if you die 2 days from now after you've been divorced, that's not the case. Like we should fix that today. And so it just kind of
Yeah.
became a natural progression there.
Yeah, you're definitely making me think I need to get on the ball. I have not done any I in fact, my ex-husband and I had never updated our will that we had prior to children together. I'm that far behind on any sort of estate planning or will
Yeah, that's
generating. So
highly
it's on my
problematic.
agenda.
Well, you should get
I'll
on
get
that right away.
I will. I will. I know a guy.
You know a guy, give your
Hmm.
guy a call.
I would trust his advice. All right. Well, thank you so much for pulling back the curtain on wills and estate planning today.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. And if nothing else, update your will, Kristina.
Sir, yes, sir.
Divorce, Not Murder is sponsored by Taylor Law Amp Mediation PLLC. Idaho divorce clients can find Robert at www.taylorlm.com.